Well, good morning, everyone. It's great seeing you all today. Welcome to this webinar. This is the third webinar in a series organized by ITC and the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee. And this webinar in particular, Upcycled Value, Innovations in Coffee and Consumer-Facing Products with Circular Solutions, is hosted by the SCA. And it's aligned with the SCA Equitable Value Distribution initiative that is probably supported by Barista Attitude and Pacific with Barista series. Thank you all for joining us today. I will pass the baton to Katherine Oglietti, who will help us to frame the initial conversation on this webinar today. So thank you, Katherine. Let me share my screen for you all.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Andrés. Welcome, everyone. I'm so pleased to see that yet again we have participants from across the globe representing many areas within the coffee value chain, which we are proposing to rename the Coffee Value Circle. This is the third in a 5-part webinar series, Regenerating Value Through Circular Economy in Coffee. And as Andrés explained, it's presented by International Trade Centers Alliances for Action Program, the International Coffee Organization, and the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee. This work comes out of the ITC Coffee Guide Network's Circular Economy and Coffee Working Group. I think this slide, it's showing the wrong slide. There we go.
My bad.
We're back. This series explores how companies and organizations at different stages in the coffee value circle are implementing practices in circular economy to reduce waste, support regeneration of natural systems, and generate new income opportunities. Today's webinar is co-hosted with Specialty Coffee Association. SCA has been an active contributor to the Circular Economy Working Group and is a member of the Center for Circular Economy and Coffee. As we'll learn today, SCA sees circular economy as one model that contributes towards social, economic, and environmental sustainability, including equitable value distribution. Today's panel, Upcycled Value, Innovations in Coffee and Consumer-Facing Products with Circular Solutions, showcases some innovative products that use coffee byproducts as primary ingredients. I'm pleased to introduce today's panel of innovators and entrepreneurs in this space. Our first panelist, Noomi Mikkelsen, who is the marketing coordinator at Kaffe Bueno, a company based in Copenhagen, Denmark. Our next panelist is Mark Byrne, the co-founder and CEO of Good Liquor Works in New York. And finally, Arka Irfani, who is the founder and CEO of Bell Living Lab in Indonesia. Today's moderator is Andrés Montenegro, the Sustainability Director at SCA. He's from Colombia and based in the US. And my name is Katherine Oglietti. I'm the Coffee Guide Network Coordinator, coordinating its Circular Economy Working Group as part of the International Trade Centers Alliance for Action Program. I'm also the co-coordinator of the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee, and I'm based in the US. You can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. This webinar series comes out of the Multi-Stakeholders Working Group on Circular Economy and Coffee, part of the ITC Coffee Guide Network. The Coffee Guide Network formed out of the collaborative process in co-creating the 4th edition of the Coffee Guide, together with 70 coffee experts from around the world. The working group began collaborating since February last year, conducting a sector-wide survey and sharing perspectives and research to understand opportunities, gaps, and challenges in circular economy and coffee. It's now 62 members, are individuals representing 44 organizations in 36 countries globally, who convene to co-create and share knowledge about circular economy and coffee. Some of our milestones are a global sector survey on circular economy and coffee with 322 responses. We put out a position paper making a case for circular economy in coffee. That's the cover page on the side, and I'll put the link in the chat later. And this work built toward the International Coffee Organization's Coffee Development Report, Beyond Coffee Toward a Circular Economy in Coffee, and this webinar series. We continue this work by deepening into the different practices and opportunities and understanding what kind of challenges we can address together as a sector. Individuals and anyone interested today are welcome to join. We are happy to share the... Oh, can you go back, please? One slide. Thank you. We're happy to share today the overview of the ICO Coffee Development Report has been released, Beyond Coffee Toward a Circular Coffee Economy. The report includes coffee byproduct compositions and their applications in a variety of sectors from cosmetics, health and wellness. We'll see some of those examples today. It leverages findings from the global survey to understand what are the key challenges that limit the adaptation of circular economy practices and recommendations to address those challenges as a coffee sector. The report includes data calculations from the working group and the Center for Circular Economy that estimate global volumes of coffee byproducts or the biological waste that's generated through coffee processing. For example, the report finds that over 40 million tons of biomass are produced annually from coffee processing. Nearly 30 million tons are generated in producing countries. So for example, including coffee cherry skin, pulp, mucilage, and parchment. Over 11 million tons of spent coffee grounds are produced through drinking our daily cup of coffee. These byproducts can be difficult to dispose in mass, becoming a waste that contributes to pollution and greenhouse gas emissions. Or they can be reused and upcycled through regenerative agriculture and circular economy practices to create more income-generating opportunities in the process. This collaborative process of co-creation and resources and our work with partners, including International Coffee Organization, Lavazza Foundation, and UNIDO, led to the formation of the Center for Circular Economy in Coffee, which is a pre-competitive platform to put into action the recommendations, best practices, and findings in the paper. It was established in Turin, Italy, and it's now open to all players in the coffee sector. Next slide, please. The center is open to support producers, small and medium enterprises, exporters, traders, roasters, and consumer-facing companies. It also supports ecosystem institutions, research and development partners, and relevant civil society and international organizations at a global level. The center aims to provide global knowledge network and a chance to share best practices and learnings on the implementation and adaptation of pilot projects in circular economy from seed to cup. So what is circular economy for the coffee sector? Our working group came up with a definition of circular economy specific for coffee, building from established definitions, including from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. This definition serves as a mission statement for the sector, as a guiding star to say, this is what we mean by circular economy, and this is the ideal that we're trying to achieve. It encourages a mindset shift to rethink our processes from design to after consumer use. It includes in the definition regenerative agricultural practices, resource efficiency, and waste reduction. It takes inspiration from nature, where no waste is created, and it's systemic and holistic. We can have individual actions, but to truly achieve a circular economy, we need to be working together as a sector and thinking of the larger ecosystem of processes from seed to cup. Finally, circular economy generates new value, especially shared economic value for people in coffee producing countries. I'll now hand it back to Andrés, Sustainability Director for SCA, to talk about the relevance of circular economy specifically for SCA and its members. Why is circular economy important, and how does this fit into your sustainability agenda? Thank you.
Thanks, Katherine. That's a nice intro. Thank you very much appreciated. And that's a tough question. I think that we are still rethinking how this circular economy innovation and way of doing fits into our agenda, but definitely agree with that circularity rethinks the connection between people and planet, resources and products, and value and capital. In particular, for coffee, we're trying to see circular economy as a way to restore and regenerate biological materials and ecosystems and promote the well-being of coffee producing communities and sharing opportunities and value with all who co-created, increasing with this the competitiveness and innovation in the coffee sector. We definitely want to stress that circular economy must seen as a technical, but also as a social solution and innovation. And that's for us probably the key connection on, on circular economy that we are trying to leverage with our um, collaboration with ITC and the Center for Circular Economy. When we launch our sustainable coffee agenda, and particularly the Equitable Value Distribution Survey report and findings early this year, we were trying to double check and to keep moving forward with this vision for creating a thriving and profitable coffee sector for all the actors in the coffee system. And we truly believe that this challenge of making coffee sustainable calls for a new collective mindset and leadership capacity, being more conscious, purposeful, and strategic to create this future intentionally and with greater possibilities for all actors in the coffee value chain. I put this quote from Professor Elizabeth Moss-Cantor, because when we share our equitable value distribution, and I think not the key highlight, but one of the key highlights and something that we are trying to share in recent dialogues and conversations around the report, is that when we talk about sustainability, we are halfway through our pathway to making a sustainable coffee sector. This Enneagram is just a reflection of that sustainability in coffee and sustainable development, it's a new concept. It's a modern invention, and we need to embrace and recognize that we are in the earliest stages of sustainability for the coffee sector. We need to mature, and we need to embrace that understanding to really learn and evolve as a sector to innovate for the better. This idea of the need for mature sustainability is key for us. And when we were discussing this during a webinar with the Donut Economic Action Lab, that also we are members of, and they promote a vision of circular economy, trying to balance. It's a balance the social element. It's an emerging global movement that for the specialty coffee sector in particular aims to provide the building blocks for creating the 21st century coffee sector that is regenerative and distributive by design. In that webinar, and for me, it matters very much for today's presentations and insights, something that resonated with me that I want to share with you is something like, when we talk about design, machines operate according to design parameters. Buildings function also and create benefits for their inhabitants based on the way they are designed. And similarly, we need to ask the question, what is possible for a business, for a sector at large, considering these design principles? How we can do that, how to design an enterprise that is sustainable, and recognize that the design of an enterprise and a sector shapes its priorities, how to engage with its surroundings and navigates decision, who has power, and voice when it comes to making those decisions and where it invests and channel its profits. That recognition is key and fundamental in what we see as circular economy. And we are convinced that circular economy is a tool for rethinking business and for rethinking our specialty coffee sector. And many businesses increasingly want and are embracing this social and ecological purpose that calls for a change in their dynamic to becoming regenerative and distributive by design. Why now this focus in circular economy? I would say that we need to consider that global consumption of coffee is still rising around between 1 to 3% every year. And in the last 30 years, coffee production almost doubled. And a similar growth in production is forecasted by 2050. So production in 30 years will be something around 300 million bags. But with a compounded challenge due to the climate crisis, socioeconomic challenges that are still present, as highlighted in our reports around equitable distribution. So innovate is an imperative if those growth projections remain. And sustainability, I recall the Sustainability Award winner in 2008 for the SCA was the SERI Foundation, that was in circular jargon, was a circular model for coffee production, and that was 16 years ago. So a lot has passed in the last decades or so. And circular economy is this approach that offers opportunities for value creation and use coffee byproducts, reduce them and upcycle them. And now more than ever, the transition towards a circular coffee sector is needed to make coffee better for all. I'm not going to describe these graphics, just to highlight that both are potentials of circular economy. The graphic on the left in color and with the letter A is a technical solution. The graphic on the B in black is a social innovation solution based on circular economy. And both are needed. That balance is required, and sustainability as a never-ending activity needs to balance that imperative of technical and social solution to move forward. So the companies that we will introduce today, that you will learn about them in this webinar, are moving in that direction. So I will pass the baton to our first panelist of today from Café Bueno. Noomi, welcome again, and the floor is yours. Let me stop my screen sharing so you can take the control.
Thank you. Yes, let's do that.
And welcome again.
Let me just share, and here you go. It should be working now, I hope.
It is.
Beautiful. Hi, everyone. I am Noomi Mikkelsen, and I am the Marketing and Branding Coordinator at Caffe Bueno. I just wanted to, thank everyone that is part of producing this webinar series for inviting us on today. And now I'd like to show you some of Caffe Bueno's innovations within coffee. So firstly, a little bit about our vision and mission. So our goal is to basically change the perception of coffee from being only a drink to also becoming a sustainable ingredient that you can use in everyday products. Oh, 1 second. I was just blocking it. And our mission is to unlock coffee's health potential. And we do this by being innovative and using the latest sustainable and green tech to try to create cutting-edge solutions that help our markets' pains and needs. So a little bit about the background. So it was founded in Denmark in 2016 by 3 Colombian entrepreneurs, Camilo Fernandez, Alejandro Franco, and Juan Medina. And because of their background from Colombia, they already understood coffee was much more than just a drink, as they had seen it as kind of a super ingredient in their home country, with their grandmothers using it for their wounds and also for dyeing their hairs and much more. But it wasn't until later when they moved to London to study that they had their really big epiphany. They started to see how only 1% of coffee was used in the drink, and that this then led to a lack of value for coffee, essentially, because it wasn't being utilized at its maximum potential, which meant, of course, that the farmers were being also paid too little for the value of coffee, and that there were untapped health benefits that we were all missing out on. After that epiphany, they, of course, thought about using the waste rather than using the raw material. So they looked into the impact, and they could see that, of course, coffee waste, as anything we massively consume in this world, it fuels global warming. So they would also help to produce something that's more sustainable and that can help the planet and the people on it. So that's where the overall mission was created. And the idea is to unlock coffee's potential for a circular and sustainable world. And yeah, so the magical bean, I'm sure everybody here already knows enough about what's in coffee, but there are several compounds that are extremely valuable, not just caffeine, right? So why did we choose coffee? Well, firstly, it's one of the most consumed drinks in the world. I think we can all agree to that. And in 2021, around 10 billion kilos were consumed. And since then, and until 2025, there's been about a 7% growth. So there is a lot of coffee waste that's not being utilized. We also saw that there were trends in cold brew and in ready to drink products. So we realized that we could find a good source for the raw material because we work with the spent coffee grounds. And then we saw that it's already been proven as a super ingredient. There were already hundreds of studies that we had not been a part of that were showing the benefits that coffee has on diabetes, Alzheimer's, and other skin and health diseases and problems. And lastly, but most importantly, of course, it has a huge impact on climate and society. So as I already mentioned, it seems that it was mostly utilized at 1% in the coffee beverage, but we would like to use the entire coffee bean and get the entire value out of the coffee. Also, the climate footprint of coffee is huge. Every kilo of coffee, about 20.6 kilos of CO2 equivalent is produced, and 125 million livelihoods depend on coffee. So it has a huge impact climate-wise and society-wise. So our solution. Well, we obviously wanted to create this sort of circular concept and upcycle the coffee grounds in a way that that could allow us to truly get the full potential of coffee. So the thing we do right now, but this will of course evolve with time, is that we source from trusted industrial partners. So these partners are the producers of, for example, the ready-to-drink products I mentioned previously, or cold brew. We then have it taken to our biorefinery, where we break down using green tech the coffee into several different compounds, which then become ingredients for the markets that we found have an actual need for it. In this case, we mostly work with the well-care market. Everything we do is always science-driven and market-focused. We don't want to produce something just to produce something. So we're always trying to make sure that we're coming with true solutions. And as for the market, we launched our first two ingredients in personal care nutrition in 2020, Kaffe oil and Kaffe fiber. And since then, we've launched hair care ingredients, sun protection ingredients, anti-aging ingredients, and even more. And we've also got several patents, but I won't get really into that right now. So almost exactly a year ago, we actually inaugurated the world's first coffee biorefinery in Denmark. And it's allowed us to basically scale up our entire concept. So now what we should be able to do is process around 500 to 1,000 tons annually, which obviously is letting us slowly grow this idea and be able to truly make a difference with coffee waste. But eventually we would like to have biorefineries all around the world in this sort of decentralized network so that we can all benefit in all corners of the globe. So now for our innovations. So as I mentioned, Kaffe oil was one of the first products we launched on the market. It's our upcycled active emollient. It comes in two versions. The reason we did this is because of market needs. Formulators in personal care, they need to be able to use two different consistencies and products with different levels of smell and so on. So we tailored it in that way, but it is very high in antioxidants. It has skin barrier promoting benefits. It's moisturizing, and also it's very sustainable because for every kilo of Kaffe oil, there is actually a reduction in CO2 equivalent emissions, making it 9.4 times more sustainable than palm oil and 3.4 times more sustainable than argan oil. So it's great for sustainable high performance skincare and hair care, such as hair oil and moisturizer, like you see here at the bottom of my slide. And our second innovation, and the reason why I picked these two, we do have many, as I mentioned previously, but these are the two that are the most popular this year. So they're really relevant to hear about. But this is our upcycled multifunctional active biopolymer. It has anti-glycation properties, so it's age-defying. And I've put a little bit of an example here for you to see, but we did these in vivo studies testing Kaffage in a BB cream on women for 28 days, and we saw an improvement in fine lines, improvement in hydration of the skin, the appearance of hyperpigmentation also vanished, and yeah, the skin was brightening and just more moisturized overall. So Kaffage also, other than having these kind of age-defying elements, it's also able to mimic the skin tone, so it helps formulators create products that fit with our actual skin color. And simultaneously, it's SPF boosting, so it also protects you from the sun. We recommend this for cosmetics because, as I mentioned, the mimicking of the skin color is a huge plus in that industry. But at the same time, it's also able to give this these great antioxidant capabilities to products in the personal care industry. So that's what I have for today. But if you'd like to know about more of our products, you can obviously ask me some questions, or you can go to our website, which you can see here, and I'm sure we will share with you later as well. I will stop sharing, and then I think we will pass it on. Great.
Thank you, Noomi. I think that, let me see, I'm checking the chat. Seems that we don't have questions yet, but Noomi, if you could turn on your camera, I have a couple of questions. I think that we have time for at least a couple of questions. Very interesting presentation. Really proud of you guys of the innovation of being a trailblazer in circular economy, and something that came, you described like the technical connection that brought you and Café Bueno to coffee, but probably just want to know more about how that you connected with coffees. Like, you have a coffee background as a company, your colleagues, how you find like the coffee as an opportunity. Probably if you can elaborate a little bit more on that connection, that would be great.
Yeah, of course. So obviously our three founders are all from Colombia. So I think that was a big part of, the connection to coffee. Although they don't come from necessarily coffee backgrounds per se. They're not from a coffee farming family or something, but they obviously grew up, as you probably know well yourself, quite close to coffee, and saw how it was used differently in your culture. So that's one element. But then also when they did study in London, they were able to see how people perceive it here in Northern Europe. And they were studying with a lot of people from Europe, and especially Northern Europe. They had a lot of Scandinavian people around them, which is maybe a nice thing to note, because that's why they ended up eventually being pushed towards Denmark because of this kind of network around them that we're talking about, the potential coffee had, but also the type of technology Denmark and Scandinavia is exploring. So I think it was like these two worlds colliding that brought us to this solution.
Awesome, great to know that.
Yeah.
And thinking about that, I mentioned in my intro that the ZERO Foundation, that was the Zero Emission research initiative. Was an initiative that was launched to promote. They never mentioned circular economy as a concept. They were talking about biosystems creation, but they were circular solutions anyway. They won the sustainability award in 2008, 16 years ago. So we have been hearing about the potential of circular economy in coffee for decades now. But my perspective, and probably that's my question, it's what is happening now that was not happening 15 years ago? Because the Surrey Foundation now it's a forgotten memory.
Yeah.
And I would like to know how things have changed, why now for you, and yeah, probably elaborate more on the conditions and what elements are triggering these solutions now.
Yeah. Sure, I'd love to elaborate on that. Well, firstly, I think we all know that the climate crisis has been well amplified in even just the last year. The reports we're seeing and the ice caps and all of this melting are having a huge influence on every single area, and I think every government in the world is being forced to change their processes to try to fit with this slightly sinister future of ours. I want to say that that does have a big impact in the investments and support that we've received, and also, you know, because we are working with something that's upcycled, it's a waste. That's something that within the last 10 years, consumers have adapted to. I believe that maybe around the time 2016, as you mentioned, upcycling was still kind of seen as something that, for example, in personal care was lower of quality or dirty. You know, it had all these kind of connotations that made it less valuable, actually. But now, because of the situation we're in as a whole world population, every company in the world actually wants to be able to say, well, we use something upcycled, or we are trying to think in these lines, something circular, something that can help us be more green, because, well, we do have to, and also the regulations are putting us in that way. So I have this feeling it was a bit of like a combination of things that allowed us to make it through this far. But also simultaneously, I won't lie, I know that when the three founders were working on it, the first handful of years, almost nobody believed in them. Like they were doing anything and everything. They were even like roasting their own coffee and using free machines in shops to grind them, and all sorts of solutions. And they really were told this is impossible. People have tried it and that it's not going to work. But once we opened the first biorefinery, I think that perception was slightly changed.
Awesome. Awesome. Good to know. I have a follow-up question on that, but probably I can wait because we have two like technical
Yes.
questions that emerged in the chat. I don't know if you will be able to share the details, but
I will try my best. I'll have a look.
yeah. Niels and Warren, they asking about how do you keep it fresh, the coffee grounds, to prevent from decomposing? And Warren asked, what active ingredients, not necessarily the specifics, but what active ingredients have been found in your coffee upcycled products?
Shall I answer it here or shall I write in the chat?
You can answer. Yes, please.
Okay. Well, firstly, well, the active ingredients, I'd like to say that our website has a great description of all our ingredients, but I mentioned two of them. We also have one for hair called Kaffe, which is also very interesting to read about how it affects the scalp microbiome, and we're hoping it can also be proven to support hair growth, but that's in progress. But I would
Looking
really
forward
recommend.
to that.
Yeah. I think we all are. I mean, even I drop hair from stress. So, yeah, no, it's our portfolio is extensively growing, but we also have functional ingredients because we want to make the most of the coffee. And I don't know if you know this, but active ingredients are normally used in very small quantities. So we're trying to kind of balance our portfolio out so that it's not just use this coffee oil or coffee emollient. but to actually like be able to use something at a larger capacity. So something we've been working on and we launched just this year is our ingredient clean stent, which is a bio-based anionic surfactant. So that's something that has to be used in higher quantities, which means we're able to actually utilize coffee even further. But we also hope to expand into more industries soon. So there's all sorts. I think they should dive into our website and just, go nuts. Otherwise, I'll follow up in the chat.
Yeah,
Could you
awesome.
remind
Thank
me
you.
what the other question was?
The other question was about how you keep fresh and
Yes.
prevent from decomposing the coffee
Yeah.
grounds.
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it's also a very important factor in everything we do. This is exactly why right now we only collect spent coffee grounds from Northern Europe. And we actually only work with one supplier, one major industrial partner, because we cannot risk the microbial spoilage that can occur if the coffee is not delivered to us in time and in the right way. So coffee grounds have to be dried and they have to come to us fast. So we can't receive from Colombia just yet. But once we build our biorefinery in South America, of course, we will be able to cater to that whole corner of the world as well.
Well, looking forward to that. You need to invite me there when you have.
Yeah, of course. Of course we will.
Well, thank you, Noomi.
Great,
Very
thank
much appreciated. We'll be back with you in the final Q&A, but thank you for your presentation. Very insightful. Now we are moving forward with the webinar and trying to be mindful of time. So our next presentation and presenter is Mark Byrne, is the co-founder of Good Liquor Works, a carbon negative distillery that works exclusively with the food waste byproduct of coffee trade. So Mark, welcome. The floor is yours, and well, looking forward to know more about what you are doing.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here and to talk about what we do. My name is Mark Byrne. I am one of the co-founders of Good Liquor Works, a climate positive distillery that, like the introduction said, works exclusively with the waste byproducts of the coffee trade. Before I talk about coffee, I need to talk a little bit about corn. So bear with me for a second as I tell you a little bit of story about corn. Every year across the United States, about 36 million acres of corn is grown exclusively for the purpose of distilling ethanol. The reason that we use corn for ethanol is because it is a starchy grain, it is rich in carbohydrates, and carbohydrates can be converted into sugars with the addition of an enzyme and heat, and sugars are the base of alcohol. So alcohol is just yeast eating sugar. It is the natural byproduct of yeast eating sugar. So anything that has starches or carbohydrates, therefore, can also have sugars and therefore can also make alcohol. So in the US, in fact, all over the world, there is a big industry around taking this grain, taking corn or wheat or rye or things like that and making them into alcohol. Why do we use so much of that grain to make alcohol or ethanol? Because we put it in so many different things. It is a base in gasoline. It is in addition to gasoline, it is in cosmetics and perfumes. It is used in chemical and laboratory settings. And of course, it is something that we consume. In fact, in the United States, corn ethanol is the base for both Smirnoff and Tito's and a number of other products, not to mention near every single bourbon whiskey and a lot of other products where it barely even be listed on the label. At the same time, all over the world, as everyone on this call knows, we are throwing away millions and millions of tons of coffee fruit. And that coffee fruit is rich in sugar. Now, I say 44 million tons here. That is the number that I read when I put this slideshow together. I think the estimate earlier in the presentation was 30 million tons. Either way, there is a tremendous amount of coffee fruit waste that is being thrown away every single coffee season in 60 coffee producing nations all around the world. This is not great, as everybody here, I think, knows. The bean only makes up about 20% of the volume, and so the rest of it, if it's just going to rot in the sun, what we're wasting here isn't just something that is contributing to climate change, it is also wasting natural sugar. And as I said before, sugar is the basis of alcohol. All you need to make alcohol is sugar. So on one side, you have massive factory farmed industrialized grain ethanol production, which is slowly but surely destroying the the nutrient rich topsoil across the United States. In fact, I read one study that said that 2/3 of the topsoil in the American grain belt has already been destroyed. I saw another study recently out of Emory University that said that by 2100, because of the effects of climate change, we won't even be able to grow corn in the United States. On the other side, you have coffee farming, coffee production in these 60 nations, where a great, tremendous amount of fruit waste is being thrown away. So you have one side to produce alcohol that is harmful, and you have another side that could produce alcohol that is wasteful. So my business partner and I sat down and we looked at these two problems and we realized that they were connected, that there was a middle ground, there was an intersection of these problems that could create one solution to deal with both of them. We thought that there had to be a better way. So that was the origin. That was 2015, almost 10 years ago. My business partner, Tristan Willie, and I sat down and decided that we needed to look into this. And so we spent 5 years trudging through coffee farms across Latin America. We visited hundreds of farms, interrogated the coffee production system, the harvesting system up and down. What we were looking for was a way that we could build a supply chain. I sometimes joke that I started out in this industry as somebody that wanted to make an alcohol brand, and I turned into a logistics manager. Essentially, the problem, and I'm sure that many of the people on this call who work with coffee know this, the problem is that that fruit, as it comes off the bean, it starts to rot almost immediately. And there are settings that you can put it in. There's treatment, there's expensive treatment that you can do. There's time-intensive treatment that you can do to compost it. But for the most part, within hours, it begins to decompose. And so what we decided to do is build a logistical network to process it and deal with it within 18 hours of it coming off of through a mill. In order to do this, in 2018, we brought down a hobby still and set it up in an Airbnb in northern Colombia in Santa Marta. We actually rigged that still up to the sink in the kitchen and hot wired an induction hot plate into probably a 200-year-old grid before the invention of electricity. We're able to basically produce what we thought was the first alcohol made from coffee fruit. And I should say, as a side note, throughout this process, throughout the 9 years we've been doing this, I always, was on the lookout for evidence that there was some distillery somewhere that was already working on this, that there was some kind of distillery in a coffee region that I didn't know about that was processing this material. To the best of my knowledge, we have not seen a distillery that is focused on this before we did. We made our first product actually in 2017. We released our first product on the market in 2020. That was a brand that we called Good Liquor Works. That was our consumer-facing vodka brand distilled entirely from the fruit waste byproduct of coffee. So essentially, all we are doing to produce this brand is harnessing those sugars that would otherwise rot and using them as a base for alcohol. So in order to do that, we set up a supply chain in Colombia. We worked hand in hand with the FNC, the National Coffee Federation, and we built out a network where throughout the harvest season, every day we picked up fruit, concentrated it into a shelf-stable sugar substitute, imported that to the United States, and distilled it at a distillery in New York. From that, we were able to launch this product, get it onto the market, and start showing people the reality of distilling with coffee fruit, distilling coffee fruit into a vodka substance. As we did this, we were also very keen to find out the environmental benefits of this. As I said earlier, the key to this is to lessen the damage of climate change, to deal with a waste material, and also reduce the burden on industrial grain manufacturing and factory farming. So we also had our carbon footprint analyzed by a Dutch company called EcoChain. EcoChain put together a full analysis of our entire supply chain. They also looked at the coffee supply chain in general. The numbers on the screen in front of you are average taken from 30 wet mills that are UTZ and Rainforest Alliance certified across Latin America, averaging the environmental impact of different parts of the supply chain. Now, when we made Good Vodka, or Good Liquor Works Vodka, what we did was work exclusively with the mucilage. So we took that liquid material that washes the sugary substance off of the bean, and we concentrated that into a shelf-stable sugar and imported that. So the mucilage is actually one of the most damaging parts of the coffee processing supply chain, because when it gets washed down hills and ends up in rivers and starts to rot, it produces methane, which is 84 times more damaging to the environment than CO2. So because we're taking that mucilage out of a typical waste stream and harnessing it, turning it into something that will not decompose that way, that will not produce methane, we are ending up with a carbon footprint of negative 15.76 kilograms of CO2 emissions. That's the reduced offset by every single bottle of Good Vodka produced this way. But this seemed to us like a sort of just the first step. What we were really interested in is the bigger picture here. So then we went back to corn and we said, okay, well, we've made one thing on this list. We've made beverage alcohol, something you would drink. But there's all these other circumstances where grain ethanol is being produced and added to ingredients. So what could we do to scale this up and replace those? We thought, well, we need to build a bigger distillery because coffee fruit can be the basis of biofuel. It can be the basis of perfume and cosmetics. It can be used in laboratory settings. It can be used in pharmaceuticals. These are all opportunities to harness this waste. I, through sort of a back of the napkin calculation, I figured out that the amount of coffee fruit waste being thrown away every year would produce more than 2 billion tons, or 2 billion metric tons of alcohol every year. Which is a tremendous amount of alcohol. Just the fruit waste in Colombia alone could replace every bottle of vodka sold in the US every single year. So this is a lot of sugar. It's a lot of sugar that's going to waste, and it's a lot of sugar that we should be using. So the next thing we did is we built a distillery. We built a large industrial processing factory in Costa Rica. You can see it right here. That building is about almost a little more than 1,500 square meters, so more than 15,000 square feet. And it is designed to process a tremendous amount of alcohol every year, produce more than 2 million liters of alcohol every year, or put another way, it can process more than 20,000 tons of industrial fruit waste every year. This factory was designed with the purpose of basically being able to scale up this process. But in order to scale it up, we had to go back to square one and redesign our supply chain for scale. And in order to do that, we looked at bricks levels. This is a sort of a gross picture, but this is the gist of my job for the past 9 years has been taking sugar measurements at various points in the coffee supply chain and trying to figure out where we can access it and where we can remove that sugar from a waste stream and harness it. So we took bricks measurements, sugar measurements at every point of the supply chain throughout several farms in Costa Rica, several co-ops, and tried to figure out the point at which we could essentially arrest that process and put it in a situation where we could harness it for alcohol. This is a bunch of bags of fruit that we took off the farm. We did a lot of studies on how quickly we needed to remove it from that circumstance, how to grind it and squeeze it so that it could produce a liquid that we could use. I personally shoveled a lot of this material, as you can see here, back-breaking labor to bring it into fruit presses that we had custom designed to deal with the material. And ultimately, we built a supply chain in partnership with a Costa Rican company called POAS Bioenergy, where we take the entire waste stream of fruit waste material, POAS works with it to produce a biochar. We squeeze the material. Their biochar can go back to farmers as a replacement for their for compost to return nutrients to the soil. And then the liquid element we bring to our distillery, which is about 10 kilometers in from the west coast of Costa Rica. And at that distillery, we can convert it into alcohol. And like I said, that facility is big enough to produce more than 2 million liters of alcohol every year, which is to say that it is big enough to serve as a replacement for all sorts of industrialized ethanol uses around the globe. And that is ultimately the goal, is to show that in the coffee supply chain, there exists a viable and promising and beautiful alternative to industrialized grain ethanol. At the end of the day, the thing that we try to remember that sort of informs every decision we make is that ethanol is agriculture, and every step of this process is one that should keep that in mind. So our process is, in fact, fully circular. We create no waste products. Everything that we don't use is returned to the farm as a nutrient. And in that process, we believe that we have figured out a really great solution for how ethanol is made. Thank you.
Awesome, Mark. Thanks for that presentation. Very insightful, very insightful. I have a quick question with some context. When we think about logistics in coffee,
yeah,
one of the things that we're used to, because we have operated in that way for many, many years, is that once the farmer has stabilized the product, green coffee, the parchment at the farm, we can have some delays here and there, and there is no major challenges to address from there. But what you just described, it's an operation that has a different, let's say, timing, and just wondering how this works for you, like the timing, and how the collaboration with your partners is different from what traditional trading in coffee is. I probably, if you can elaborate a little bit more on the structure and the dynamics, because I'm thinking in my head, it's like, this is amazing, not only as a solution, but the logistic hurdle, it's major. And you described work in Colombia and also now in Costa Rica. And you can elaborate a little bit more on those details, that would be awesome. Thanks.
Sure, of course, yeah, happy to. I mean, that is the brunt of the hard work here is setting up logistical networks. I joked before that I thought I was getting into to make alcohol, but really I became a logistics manager. I will also sometimes joke that my job is waste management. My company is essentially a waste management company. What we do relies on a network of trucks that can pick up that material on a regular basis every single morning after an evening of harvest and processing. We set up our supply chain. Again, I'm talking about 9 years of R&D here. So this wasn't something where I said, oh, we should make coffee fruit ethanol. I'd love to go buy some coffee fruit on Alibaba and have it imported to the United States. This is something where we had to design every single step of this process on our own independently. And that relied on reliable trucks and truck drivers who we deal with, who we have great relationships with, who go to the, we like to work with medium-sized co-ops, wet mills that have a sort of a regular processing schedule so that the truck can show up at the wet mill, pick up the material, and bring it back to our facility, generally speaking, within 8 to 10 hours after it's been removed from the bean. So to your point, yes, it is important that truck shows up. We do not have delays on our process because we built a process that couldn't have delays.
Awesome. I'm trying to be mindful, and I'm trying to jump in my screens with Q&As. I haven't seen anything directly to you, Mark, but I will use that as an excuse to make you a different question on what is your vision when you see like the company Good Liquor Works in 5, 10, 15 years? What are you doing in the future? How are you seeing you and your colleagues, the company, in the future, in that future?
The Costa Rican distillery is a proof of concept, and no, not proof of concept. The vodka is the proof of concept. The Costa Rican distillery is the first step in what will become a very large process. We are planning to open similar facilities in other coffee regions. We're already in conversations with several. Basically, what we like to find is a partner in another region. We identify a mill, we start building logistical networks, and in doing that, we can basically replicate this system anywhere where there is a wet mill throwing out grain. There was a question that came up in the chat that talks about compensation for the wet mills, so I'd like to just answer that quickly because it relates to this.
Thank you.
Our process is one where we actually remove we can use every drop of waste in partnership with this company, POAS, that we work with in Costa Rica. We can use every single bit of waste, dry, wet, whatever. And so our process actually, we found, saves the wet mills we work with, the culls we work with, about 8% of their budget. It removes that line item dealing with the waste, trucking it off site, paying somebody to drive through compost piles, paying for waste management, paying for mucilage removal, all these things. Because we are able to offer that cost reduction to these farms, they're actually happy to give us the waste as essentially a gift for taking that line item off of their budget. So I would say that we compensate the wet mills by removing the waste from them. Another question that just came up: how seasonal is the process? As everybody, I think, who works in coffee knows, it is incredibly seasonal. We can really only do this during the harvest season. So we built our facilities to be large enough to produce a lot of alcohol, a lot of ethanol during the 4 or 5 months that we can get waste material. That said, I don't want to say too much, but we have other fruits that we have a similar process that we've looked at and that we will be incorporating into our process in the future. Other fruit byproducts, I should say.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. I think that's it for now. Probably I have a few more questions, but we can wait until the final Q&A session with all of the group.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Now we're transitioning with our last but not least, Arka Irfani, the founder of Bell Living Lab. He combines his background in biology with the passion for sustainability. Arka, welcome. Good evening for you. Thanks for joining us from Indonesia. I know that it's late, but hopefully you are energized. And yeah, thanks again. And the floor is yours.
Yeah. Hi, hello everyone. Good night from Indonesia. Good morning from other side of the world, I guess. So let me share my screen. Okay. Hopefully you guys can see it.
Perfect.
Okay. So hello again. My name is Arka. I'm the CEO and founder of Bell Living Lab. So Bell Living Lab is a biometal company that is based in Bandung, West Java, Indonesia, that is focused on converting organic waste into sustainable materials. We have started our journey in 2020, and we are currently still focusing on coffee and into making the sustainable material itself. So why we do this is actually because we are looking at the growing demand of sustainable products. I mean, we are looking for people who is trying to find some replacement of plastics, and people are trying to find the replacements of leather. We see that in the fashion industry itself, we produce lots of microplastics, and only 1% of the fashion products that we produce can be recycled. So we try to find some more sustainable option for them to use in the market for the fashion industry and also in the furniture industries. And since we are based in Bandung, we are looking for opportunities. I mean, Indonesia produce about 100,000 tons of coffee waste, and each 1 kilogram of beans that produce about 1 kilogram of coffee waste that can be harvested. So we try to look at the material and at the waste and try to convert it into various kinds of material. So we use the fermentation process as well, where we ferment the waste of the coffee skin, and then we turn it into leather. And then from the parchment of coffee, we turn it into panels. And from the spent coffee grounds, we mix it with the parchment, and also we make it into a building material as well. We have several patents that help us in building this material. And I think what's interesting is that we have already tested that the material itself has tensile strength comparable to leather. So we want this to be a real replacement, a real alternative for people who wants to use leather. And we want to make it as sustainable as possible. So since Indonesia, we produce lots of natural colorants because we have like traditional textiles that we call as batik. We use lots of natural colorant. So for the black color here, we use indigo vera. From the red one, we use like secang. From the brown one, we use tingi. So all of it are organic sourced colorants that we use to color the materials. And I think what's interesting here is that we are partnering with farmers. So we collect the waste directly from them. And then we turn it by using bacteria into materials that we call as MTEX. And currently we have several kinds of certification for the material, which is PETA vegan approved, so that we can really say that the material do not harm any animals. And it also comes from like organic farmers. And we do have USDA certified by US product as well. So for people who is looking for non-plastic source, we can say that we could be the right alternative for them. And I think what's interesting is that if we compare it to like producing leather by growing animals, it took less time. So we only took about 2 weeks actually currently, and we have already been faster and accelerated, but to that we can harvest it in only 1 week. And it's really efficient. So 1 square meter of land can be used to produce 10 square meters of MTEX. And the most important part is that by the end of its usage, it could be biodegraded. And I think it's actually really interesting because the leather industry itself is a really big market. And currently we are focusing on the Indonesian SMEs. So we make the materials for the SMEs to create their end products. And we also partner with several other country brands. I won't say internationally, but yeah, we do sell the material outside of Indonesia as well. And this is what we do. So we do B2C and B2B because our goal is actually inclusivity. We want people to directly use these kinds of materials. We have seen that there are a lot of companies that are making sustainable material, but for some reason, people cannot really use it because it is not available in the market. So we try to make a B2C program where we really make the end products and then they can buy it and use it as their daily wear. But the most business that we are doing is actually on the B2B. So we supply the material to the brands. We supply the materials to like coffee shops who wants to make the tables made out of the waste. So we focus on that. And this is the impact. So we track each and every impact that we do. We currently have absorbed about 87.5 tons of coffee skin waste and prevented this amount of CO2. We try to compare it into like leather production and also like plastic production. So we want to really say that this is an alternative that is better than the former one. And we have done a lot of material implementations from furnitures to fashion. So we have already tested it. It has the strength stronger than normal kinds of synthetic leather. So it's stronger and it can also be used as outdoor use, but only for the chair that is made from the parchment. And we also make like fashion accessories. So we make broad products so that we can see like where this market, these products could really be absorbed. I mean, we are based in Indonesia, so people are not really into sustainability yet. So it's kind of hard for us to start. But we found out that by making various kinds of products, we could see like which of the products could really be accepted by the market itself. And this is before I am introducing about the MTEX, and this one is the kalpa. The kalpa is like the board that is made from the coffee parchment. So we can shape it and mold it into something like this. This is actually have already been used in several cafes in Bali and Bandung. And this is could be used as outdoor use. And the gradation of the color itself is actually made by mixing the spent coffee grounds and also with the parchment. And this is other kinds of stuff that we make. So we make coasters for coffee shops, we make stool, we make coffee tables. This is all made from the coffee waste. So yeah, from the coffee skin, we make the MTEX, and for the parchment, we make the boards. And actually what's interesting is like we can make it like using molding to create the end product. So we can scale it by using molding and other kinds of techniques to mold it is actually by using sculpting method. So we can just sculpt it as we like. So it's really flexible in how we use the materials. And we also have already tested the physical data. So the compressive strength is actually really strong. So we are looking forward to make it actually as building blocks. But I think we still need some time to test it. Currently, we are still using it as for interior products only. So like for displays, but we have seen like the compressive strength is really strong. So I believe that this could be implemented further. So in short, we could be used as furnitures and for tiles and also for like building blocks. And so we are creating a circular economy, I guess, where we purchase. So we purchase the waste from the coffee farmers, and then we collect the waste from them and turn it into biomaterials. So actually what we are doing is actually increasing the coffee farmers' income by 10% because we are not only taking it, we are buying it. I believe that is the best way because we want to maintain the quality of the waste that we absorb. I mean, the waste itself has to be in right condition to be processed. So yeah, we give them some incentive for that. So currently we are making an ecosystem, lingkar hijau. Lingkar hijau is actually translated into green loops. So we are making coffee waste processing project where we partners with like from the coffee shops and also from the farmers. So we try to partner with like various institutions to make this happen. Again, we are based in Indonesia, so it's a bit hard for us to walk alone in the sustainability. So we try to grab a lot of collaboration as well. So we found out that the best way to produce this is actually to partners with the farmers. So we are based directly like about 1 kilometers from the coffee farmers. And so we try to collect the waste and to place the processing as close as possible to the farmers. So yeah, currently we are partnering with like 500 people of farmers and hoping that we could scale outside of Bandung as well. And from the coffee grounds, we partners with like currently like 37 coffee shops in Bandung. We collect the spent coffee grounds, we turn it into material, and then we give them back the material that we make for them to use as furnitures. So they could really say that they are contributing to the sustainability. So back before this, our focus is actually on the innovation and the designs, but we found out because of the business model itself, we could implement like the social aspect in this business. And I think this is going to be something that is really important in the futures because I believe that by making like impactful sustainability, the business could be more sustainable. We could reach more people for the products and also help for the product to market itself. And this is actually the tagline for us, Science Discover Art Creates. We make it happen. We as in the ecosystem that we are trying to make. And the picture in the background is actually like how they process the coffee skin waste that are being thrown away. And I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Awesome, Arka. Very nice presentation. Very inspiring. I like very much the final slide and particularly that connection between innovation, design, and the social element. I think that definitely it's aligned with what we are trying to share around how circularity is not only a technical solution, but a solution that could leverage um, value opportunities to distribute within all the actors that are co-creating coffee and coffee products. So very, very insightful and definitely fully agree on the same page on that, Arka. I think that we have a few minutes for a couple of questions. And I have a couple from the chat for you, Arka. One from Frederick, it's around the binder. If the binder that you're using it's bio-based or biodegradable, if you can clarify that a little bit more.
Yeah, so the binder is actually biodegradable. So we are trying to mix like various kinds of ingredients, plant-based ingredients to make the materials. So it could be answered for the second questions to Mr. Hans. Mr. Hans is actually the one who we met before this. Thank you so much for introducing us, Mr. Hans. So his question is actually, can you please explain the process on how to upcycle the coffee byproducts? So actually, we use fermentation process. So we develop our own strains of bacteria, so they could really be really focused on converting the coffee waste into leather. And after that, the waste we use like water-based binder, which is again it is organically sourced. I can say organic. I mean it's a plant-based binder that is used to keep the material together. So yeah, we can really say that this is something that is biodegradable.
Awesome.
Is it okay? There is also another question.
That's perfect. Yeah. Well, I could, maybe I could be missing some questions on the chat, but I have a question for you before moving to the panel with the rest of the final panel with the rest of the group. Trying to know a little bit more about what you are all doing in your organization. How were you able to find coffee? Why coffee? How that connection emerged?
Yeah.
If you can elaborate a little bit more about that and how you are approaching the partnership with producer organizations to make this work as you know your company, your innovation grows. If you can elaborate a little bit more about that, that would be great.
Yeah. So this is actually start as a research project back in college. So we found out that there is a bacteria that can convert like various kinds of organic waste into sustainable material, into leather alternative, right? And then we try to look at the environment with what kinds of agricultural products that produce lots of waste. So we travel a lot around Bandung, and we found out that the coffee industry actually produce lots of it. I mean, when we came into the farmers, we found that there is like piles and piles of coffee skin that they don't produce. So from there, we see that there is a potential like the coffee could be converted and be used as the main material to produce the product that we have. But I think in the future, what we do can be expand further from this. I mean, Indonesia have lots of like commodities that is just as wasteful as this. But currently we still focus on coffee because we see like from here itself, the waste is already really big. I mean, we need to partners with a lot of people to really convert it into something sustainable and good for the environment.
Awesome. Thank you, Arka. Probably I'm trying to be mindful of time, and we are almost 50 minutes away from closing our time window. So I'm inviting Mark, Noomi, and Katherine, if you can turn on your cameras so we can use this last few minutes to first say thank you all for your presentations. Really, really insightful. I really enjoy the work that you're doing, how you're innovating. And for us, this is a new way of seeing coffee, and a new, not only solution, but also perspective on how to use the coffee fruit um, as a value generator and hopefully as a value sharing opportunity for all. I have a couple of questions that emerged in this chat that I would like to put on the table. Feel free to jump if you want to answer any of the panelists. The first from Stephanie. She's asking about knowing your experience on getting access to finance and investment for your startup and for the growth of the company. You could provide some challenges, opportunities, or how you were able to achieve that and related to your innovation. That would be great. So feel free. I don't know if there's anyone that would like to jump first.
I'm happy to answer that. It is always challenging to raise money for a new business venture. I think when we started talking about this in 2015 with investors, it was challenging in part because a lot of people didn't know that coffee was a fruit to begin with. And especially in the U.S. and in Western Europe, there's a lot of appreciation for the bean, but not a lot of understanding of what it comes out of. So raising funds was a lot like selling the vodka. It involved a lot of education. You just sit people down and say, not only I'm not just going to tell you what this project is. I need to tell you about how coffee is made in general. And then I need to tell you about, like I said in this conference, how corn is used. And we need to talk about the intersection of those things before you can understand the opportunity for replacement here. And obviously, as I think my fellow panelists would probably sympathize with, that we're talking about creating things that replace other things that already exist. And so when you do that, the question is always, well, why would I change what I'm using? Why would I not just use leather, right? Like why would I use something different? And that becomes a very emotional question. It's like, do you want to see the world a different way? Do you want to be part of a solution to that? And I think that there is a certain type of investor who whether this becomes something that has a profitable exit event for them or not, if it can change the way that we think about an agricultural industry, it is beneficial to them. So I'd say that the investors who really saw the beauty in this see it as something that whether or not it produces a good profitable outcome, it is something that they think should exist in the world. And I would hazard a guess that the investors behind the other two projects probably feel the same, but that's just a guess.
Awesome. Thank you, Mark. And I don't know if Arka or Noomi, feel free if you want to complement.
Yeah, I mean, I would like to add as well. So I think what's really helped us to grow is actually like there are a lot of like maybe foundation and company who is interested in sustainability that is offering like projects and grants. So we try to look for that kind of things in the first few years. And then after that, we try to focus to sell directly to the market. So we try to bootstrap the project. And I think what's interesting is that because we try to find the model that could really generate revenue from the start, I think that's what really keeps us moving till now. So the first one is like we are looking for like grants for competitions, and then after that we try to generate revenue directly from the production of the materials that we do. Yeah, and I think for investors, there are a lot of people who is interested in like impact investing, but we are still looking for one currently.
Awesome. Thank you, Arka. The compliment. I will use a provocation from Tom, but probably framing the question in a different way. One of the challenges when we talk about value distribution, one of the challenges on a conventional linear model is that usually value and distribution benefit those that are closer to the final consumer. That's not that's a rationale of how supply chains work, but at the same time that leave farmers and farm workers usually disenfranchised from getting let's say compensation that is adequate for them. And just wondering from your perspective and how you're framing the way you operate as a business, probably I would like to know more how you are structuring your operation and your logistics to benefit those, I'm not referring specific actors, but at least the ecosystem that you need to grow and keep innovating, how you are nurturing your connections with providers, suppliers, and stakeholders in your supply chain, your supply network, to guarantee that it's a strong network and that it's a network that thrives, as well as you as and a startup that is trying to, balance also the challenge of being profitable and grow. I don't know if anyone wants to jump on that.
I can put a couple of words on that. So I think we are positioned a little differently from the two other companies here today. We don't work so closely with, let's say, like the raw material, and we're working with the final waste after it's been used for the coffee drink. But I think what we try to do, like our main mission I mentioned already, was of course increasing the value, but then I also had some really great questions come in about, how do we ensure that we're not pushing the wrong agendas like deforestation or something else because of the partners we have. So I think from that end, what we try to do is we try to be very meticulous in how we pick our partners. We need to have proof that they are doing what they can do at the maximum capacity to improve on these elements all the way down to the farmer. So, I mean, even one of our investors is from Polig, the biggest coffee producer here in the Northern Europe sector. And that's the case with them. And we've been really deep in understanding how they do what they do. But on a more, let's call it local level, we also participate in the Danish Coffee Alliance, and we just try to stay really deep in the network for coffee, where we are, to truly understand what are they actually doing. It's very hard, of course, because we have to meet with so many different players in the network, and they all have their own approaches, let's call it that. So there are some long discussions, but we try to be a part of them.
Awesome. Thank you very much. And I'm trying to be mindful, and I know that Katherine needs a few minutes for wrapping up and closing this session. And I'm seeing a list of additional questions, but unfortunately, I'm afraid that we won't be able to address all of them right now. But I think that you already shared your contact information. Pretty sure that we will be open to receive email or connections through other channels and address them directly. So, Katherine, if you could do the honors of for the closing remarks, that would be great. And thank you all, Mark, Arka, and Noomi, for your time and your valuable insights today.
Thank you so much, Andrés. And yes, absolutely. Thank you to our panelists. I've learned so much today from your innovations, what you're doing, the challenges that you're facing, and how you have already invested years and years of research and development to address some of these challenges. It's fascinating to hear how I think each of you are thinking of your business models holistically. You're thinking of the system in which your business operates, not just upcycling a specific material, but thinking about your suppliers and the impact of your final product and who you're working with. It's also really great, Noomi, your last comment on how you are tapping into the coffee industry. That's one of the questions we wonder about. You know, you're engaged with the coffee industry as a whole, and I saw how, yeah, all of our panelists are as well. I want to thank you all for being here today. And just a final plug, I would love to have any of you that are working in the circular economy space or even in coffee and you want to learn more, you're welcome to join as individuals the Circular Economy Working Group. I put my email earlier in the chat and you can just reach out directly to me. It's a fairly informal working group, but we've been behind a lot of this work and papers that you're seeing today. And as organizations, I invite you and each of the panelists, Café Bueno is actually already a member, but I invite you to join the Center for Circular Economy, because what we're trying to do with the center is, as a pre-competitive initiative, how can we start putting a structure just like Specialty Coffee Association and the Denmark Coffee Association for those working in circular economy and coffee, sharing best practices, helping advance research. We have an ambition to help link to financing, even though we wouldn't be providing the financing, but we really want to support entrepreneurs in accessing financing in however we can. And maybe matchmaking between the generators of the coffee waste with the entrepreneurs, and addressing some of these logistical challenges, regulatory hurdles, common innovations as a collective. So I put that link in the chat as well, but we'd love to have organizations from all parts of the coffee value circle and entrepreneurs working in circular economy in that space. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Katherine. Just to double check, this webinar and the recording will be available in the SCA YouTube channel, and later will be posted also in the webinar series page that the Center for Circular Economy and Coffee have available for this series. So thank you very much to you all, and thank you to the panelists, and yeah, happy Wednesday.